Have you ever felt like your world shattered in a single moment? Marcus was just driving home, and a few hours later he was being called a criminal he never was. His entire life turned into a courtroom battle over a lie that could have destroyed his family. But what happened in that courtroom left even his loudest critics speechless. And this is how it all began. Marcus Walker, a 38-year-old African-American school bus driver from Chicago, lived a simple but happy life. His days revolved around early morning routes, family dinners with his wife Lotta, and cheering on his 10-year-old son Jamal at basketball games. Life wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. Until one ordinary evening flipped everything upside down. Marcus was driving home after a long shift, humming along to an old tune on the radio, when flashing red and blue lights filled his rearview mirror. With a heavy sigh, he pulled over. "What now?" he muttered, already annoyed. Approaching the car was Officer Brian Holt, a white cop infamous in the neighborhood for his abrasive attitude. Holt leaned into the driver's window with a smug grin. "Evening, sir. You seem a little jittery. Mind stepping out of the car?" Marcus frowned. "Jittery? No, just tired from work. Why am I being stopped?" "That's cute," Holt replied, his tone dripping with condescension. "Step out. Let's see if you've got something you're hiding." Reluctantly, Marcus complied, feeling a knot tighten in his stomach. A small crowd began to gather on the sidewalk, some recording the interaction on their phones. Holt began rifling through Marcus's car with deliberate slowness, tossing aside seat cushions and digging through the trunk. Then, like clockwork, he held up a small plastic bag. Well, what do we have here?" Holt declared loudly, ensuring the crowd could hear. Marcus froze. "That's not mine. I don't even know where that came from." "Sure you don't," Holt shot back, clicking the handcuffs onto Marcus's wrists. "Possession with intent to distribute. You're in big trouble, buddy." The murmurs from the crowd grew louder. "That's messed up," someone yelled, while others continued filming. But Holt didn't seem to care. Marcus was shoved into the back of the patrol car, his dignity left shattered on the curb. At the station, things went from bad to worse. Marcus was booked and slapped with charges that could ruin his life: drug possession and intent to sell. Sitting in the cold gray cell, Marcus's mind raced. How could this be happening? He'd worked so hard to provide for his family, and now everything he'd built was on the line. Back at home, Lotta was frantic. When Marcus finally called to explain what happened, she felt the floor drop out from under her. Their savings couldn't cover the kind of lawyer they needed, but she refused to let Marcus go down without a fight. After hours of calls, she found Joshua Hunter, a young public defender with a sharp mind and a drive to challenge cases like this. Joshua met Marcus the next morning. "Marcus, I'm going to be honest," he started, scanning the case file. "This doesn't look good. The evidence is strong, and this officer, well, let's just say his record isn't squeaky clean, but proving that in court, it's tough." Marcus leaned forward, his voice steady but firm. "I didn't do this. That cop planted the drugs. There were people recording. Someone has to have proof." Joshua nodded thoughtfully. "All right, I'll look into it, but be ready, this won't be easy." Unbeknownst to Marcus, one of the bystanders had already uploaded a video online. It wasn't crystal clear, but it caught enough. Holt's overconfident behavior, his strange discovery, and Marcus's disbelief. The video quickly went viral, sparking outrage. Comments poured in, demanding justice for Marcus. But as the world took notice, Marcus and his family braced themselves for a fight that would test everything they believed in. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension. Marcus sat at the defense table, his jaw tight as the prosecutor began. "Your Honor," the prosecutor announced confidently, "the evidence is clear. Marcus Walker was caught in possession, and we're seeking the maximum sentence, 10 years. Marcus's lawyer, Joshua Hunter, barely blinked. Across the room, Officer Brian Holt sat with a smug expression, ready to deliver his rehearsed testimony. When Holt took the stand, his lies flowed smoothly. "The defendant looked nervous, fumbling in the back seat," he said. "I conducted a search and found the evidence tucked away." His delivery was polished, but Marcus's hands balled into fists under the table. He wanted to shout the truth, but knew it wouldn't help. Joshua stood to cross-examine. "Officer Holt, you claim you followed procedure, but where's the body cam footage? Where's the dash cam recording?" Holt's smirk faltered for a second before returning. "There were no cameras that night," he replied curtly. Marcus's family was feeling the weight of the accusations. Lotta stayed strong for their son Jamal, but the boy was struggling. Marcus himself grew quieter, retreating into his thoughts. The case felt hopeless, until a miracle happened. A man named Victor Reyes, who had witnessed the arrest, came forward. Victor had recorded everything on his phone. His footage clearly showed Holt pulling something from his own pocket before placing it in Marcus's car. Joshua was thrilled. "This is our ticket to proving your innocence," he told Marcus. The video was submitted as evidence, but the backlash was immediate. Police began harassing Victor and his family, pressuring him to stay silent. Victor, however, refused. "I saw what I saw, and I'm not backing down," he told reporters. The footage went viral, and suddenly Marcus's case was national news. Protesters gathered outside the courthouse with signs reading, "Justice for Marcus." News channels debated police accountability, and Marcus found himself at the center of a growing movement. Despite the overwhelming public support, the judge refused to dismiss the case. "We'll proceed to trial," she said firmly, sending shockwaves through the courtroom. Joshua leaned toward Marcus and whispered, "This isn't over, we'll win." For the first time in weeks, Marcus felt a spark of hope. The fight wasn't just for his freedom anymore. It was for justice. The day of the final hearing had arrived, and the courthouse buzzed like a live wire. The gallery was packed, activists holding signs, journalists scribbling notes, and regular folks just there to witness history. Marcus Walker sat at the defense table, his face calm but his heart pounding like a drum. Across the room, Officer Brian Holt maintained his air of confidence, despite the growing whispers outside. The prosecutor kicked things off with his usual flair, painting Marcus as a threat to public safety and someone who needs to face the consequences of his actions. His voice boomed, but the crowd barely reacted. The energy in the room had shifted. People weren't buying it anymore. Then it was Joshua Hunter's turn. The young lawyer walked to the front, his expression sharp and determined. "Your Honor," he began, "the truth has been hidden for too long. Today, we expose it." He turned to the jury and started laying out the case, piece by piece. First came the discrepancies in Holt's testimony. Then, with a dramatic pause, he introduced the video evidence. The courtroom lights dimmed and the screen flickered to life. The footage played, showing Holt reaching into his own pocket before finding the incriminating evidence in Marcus's car. Gasps rippled through the crowd, followed by murmurs. Someone whispered, "I knew it," while others shook their heads in disbelief. The judge banged her gavel. "Order in the court!" Holt's smug facade cracked for the first time. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, avoiding eye contact with anyone. Joshua seized the moment, turning back to the jury. "This," he said, pointing at the screen, "is what my client has been up against. A system that targets the innocent and allows lies to destroy lives." Finally, it was Marcus's time to speak. He stood, his hands steady but his voice charged with emotion. "I'm a school bus driver," he began, looking directly at the jury. "My job is to keep kids safe, to make sure they get home to their families every day. I have a son who looks up to me, who sees me as his hero. But because of one man's lie, I became the villain." He paused, his eyes scanning the room. "This isn't just about me. It's about every person who's ever been judged not by their actions but by their skin color. It's about a system that makes us guilty before we even have a chance to prove our innocence." The room was silent, the weight of his words hanging heavy in the air. Then, slowly, applause broke out from the gallery. The judge banged her gavel again, but it was no use. The emotion in the room had spilled over. After what felt like an eternity, the judge returned from deliberation. She looked directly at Marcus. "The court finds the defendant not guilty. Furthermore, Officer Brian Holt's actions will be referred for criminal investigation." The courtroom erupted. People cheered, hugged, and even cried. Marcus turned to Lotta, who had tears streaming down her face, and Jamal, who was grinning ear to ear. They rushed to him, wrapping him in a tight embrace. Outside the courthouse, the crowd was waiting. As Marcus stepped out, they chanted his name. Cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions, but Marcus only had eyes for his son. He lifted Jamal into his arms and said, "This is for you, buddy. Never give up, no matter what." That day, Marcus Walker became more than a man who fought back. He became a symbol of hope, proof that justice could prevail, even against the odds. His story inspired a movement, reminding everyone that the truth, no matter how buried, always finds its way to the surface. What would you have done if you were in Marcus's shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you or someone you know ever faced a similar situation? Let us know your stories. Don't forget to like this video if it moved you and share it to help spread awareness. This story was created to shine a light on an important issue and inspire change. It's not just about telling a tale, it's about making the world a better place. Your voice matters. Together, we can make a difference.